But I noticed that they were
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Do you want me to talk to the camera or to you?
Talk to me.
Okay. Steve James, director of No Crossover, The Trial of Allen Iverson.
Now, the first question about this thing, how did you get approached by ESPN's for the 30 by 30 series, and how did you get to do an extra long one?
Well, yeah, I mean, ESPN, when they started the series up, they reached out to a number of filmmakers that they were interested in working with on the series. I think certainly because of Hoop Dreams, they called me, and so I went and met with them, and they told me what it is they were looking to do, which was stories about sports in the last 30 years, stories that were important, that maybe hadn't been told or fully told, and they wanted the filmmaker to do a story that personally resonated with that filmmaker in some way, not just because I live in Chicago, do a story on Michael Jordan. And so with those parameters in mind, I thought immediately of this story because Allen Iverson grew up in my hometown. When this was all happening, I wasn't living there, I was in Chicago. But I remember following it from afar and recognizing the way in which it had divided my hometown so considerably that I was always wanting to go back and understand why. When I gave ESPN a first rough cut, it had so many things in there that these are sports guys, right? That they had no idea about Allen Iverson and about what happened back then, that they recognized, to their credit, that to really do justice to the story, it needed to be longer than 52 minutes.
With Iverson, though, was it strange because you mainly had to, looking back at how he looked then, and then looking at him now, was it kind of like he became the thug everyone imagined him to be?
Well, I don't know that Allen Iverson is a thug. I mean, clearly, and I talk about this in the film, that's the way some people view him, but he certainly looks very street and tough, and he's the guy that if he didn't originate tattoos and cornrows, he certainly made them much more popular among people in general and athletes in particular. It is amazing to look back at what Allen Iverson looked like when he was 17 years old. I mean, we all look different when we were younger, but he was this exceptionally beautiful young man and an incredible athlete. And I think you do see in the Allen Iverson today, at really just the age of 34, you see the scars of his life, I think, on him. And I'm not just talking about tattoos. You see the difficulty of his life is sort of present in his persona.
Well, there's a certain hoarseness to his voice now.
Yeah.
It was almost Miles Davis raspy at some place, even though it was the emotional scene where he was talking about giving away the scholarship and stuff. But, I mean, have you been in the same room with Iverson?
I've been in the same room because we filmed the camp, but we weren't permitted to interview him. And at least we were able to capture that camp because I thought it was great to be able to bring him up to the present, back in his hometown, because I think it adds a whole nother dimension to our understanding of him and his place in that community.
Now, during post-production, that's when Iverson had his meltdown with the 76ers and stuff.
Yeah.
Were you almost having that fear of, we've got to get some more footage here,
right,
or are we going to sum this up?
No, there's always that temptation to try to make it as up-to-date as possible. All we really changed was the narration that summed him up near the end. I kept having to update it to make it as current and hopefully evergreen, as they say, as possible. But I think part of the reason we didn't need to make any big changes beyond that is that this is ultimately not a biography of Allen Iverson, and it's certainly not a biography of his life since he left Hampton. All those things are part of the film and are referred to in the film and touched on in the film. But it's, Allen Iverson today is in many respects the prism through which we now look at what happened to him when he was 17 years old. In that respect, everything we know about Allen Iverson today, or think we know, informs, I think, how we look at this incident 17 years ago.
Now looking at the footage that you got, how helpful was ESPN as far as finding footage?
Oh, tremendously helpful. I mean, ESPN has a vast archive. It's not just an archive of stuff they filmed. It's news reports. It's anything that came across their feeds that they used at any point in time in the course of telling news stories or doing other films. So it was a huge boost to the project to be able to tap into their archives to tell the story, because this is a story that's largely driven, by interviews and archival footage. And so, I don't think we could have done the film justice without it.
And rewatching the foot, especially, the football angle on Iverson was amazing.
Yeah.
Sitting there watching that, the game tapes there, were you struck that this is a guy who might have chosen the wrong career that he should have done?
Well, some people say football, he actually likes football better than basketball, that if he could have, he probably would have wanted to be a professional football player. But I think he realized wisely that, at 6 feet, 160 pounds, that he would have a chance at a longer-term career playing basketball than football. But no, it's amazing to look at that. And, the thing is that I knew he was a great football player, but hadn't seen him play. I knew it because my dad used to send me clippings about him when he was on the football team, on the football field, and just marveling at what an incredible football player was. He would tell me things like, if he gets the ball in the open field, whether it's an interception or whatever, it's a touchdown. No one can put a hand on this kid. And he said, I've never seen anything like it before.